Here we go.
G'day fans and welcome back to another exciting Wednesday night with a bit of the old repeat off the card with Aaron and myself. How good is this, Mr. Aaron? It's a Wednesday night. The footy is back on the tube even as we speak. Melbourne and Footscray, that's what I call them. Yay team, if you're not watching us, at least watch that. And if you're not watching that, then at least watch us, if that makes any sense whatsoever. How you going, old son? What's happening in the world?
Good. It's another sultry night in the spare room here for the Rip It Off the Card broadcast. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm cooking on gas now. So it was very funny. Aaron actually pointed out that in the intro sequence of the show, you have the Joker saying, here we go. And there's actually a grunt in the middle of that sequence. And Aaron always thought that it was me clearing my throat, in preparation for the show. But it's actually in the movie itself. That's poor old Batty Man, getting his ass kicked from here to Christmas by the Joker. And he's the one who's doing the grunting. So if there's any grunt in this show, it's coming from good old Batty Man, not from us. Just want to clear that up. So there you go.
For a year and a bit straight, I thought it was you clearing your throat as you were about to start talking. There you go. So
and I was doing perfect timing every time, right in the middle of the Joker's thing. So there you go. Where are we? Hang on. Dicko said doing both now. Okay. Oh, you mean watch? Make of that what you will. I realise he's watching us and the footy at the same time. Rusky Babes. There we go. Dags all. Yeah, very, very cool. And as always, it's another big show. Oh, look at this. Thomas has said, I'm here on in halves. Yeah, Dags, first time you guys are up against the footy for the first time. I know it's a torn thing. Even I'd be watching the footy right now if it wasn't for us. I'll blame Aaron for putting the show on a Wednesday night. Scurvy dog. Is that right, mate?
Hi, Colin. Hi, Joe. Thanks for joining us. We've got a great show full of all the juvenile humour that you've come to appreciate.
And in fact, we're going to chuck in, it'll probably only happen once, a brand new segment. Okay, so get ready for that, kids. As if this show isn't long enough, we're going to chuck in something a little bit extra. And for the collectors out there, it is a very important segment to watch. So make sure you don't Mickey whoop off to the footy and you stick around for us. So there you go. Now, it's very important we should mention this. So we're going to kick this off right away. Who wants the footy on a Wednesday? Well, obviously the AFL do because it's on right now, even as we speak. So there you go. So here we go. Now, if you guys remember a little while ago, right, the Vile, who loves violating things left, right, and centre as one should, made where's my button? Oh, yeah, made these wonderful things, pops regarding us, right? Which was absolutely fantastic. We thought it was awesome. People should fundraising and Kickstarter and all sort of bullshit to get these manufactured, right? But as it turned out, there's an additional set that goes with it. Now, have you seen the additional set that goes with it yet, Mr. Aaron?
No, I haven't. I didn't know. Like, there's always room for more pops, though, isn't there?
Yes, there. Well, exactly. Useless pops in particular. So, if you're wondering, should there be extra pops that go with this set? There should be, and of course there are. And it's these guys.
Oh wow! So, do you know what this kind of means? He's set the bar pretty high. Any of our live viewers that become well enough known sort of have to expect a pop version of themselves from the Vile now, don't they?
Well, that's exactly right. And there's got to be a lot of people who go, you know what? I know who Greg King is, the Soul Greg King, and the Vile, of course, is the Vile. But who the hell's the dude at the start? Well, it's this. There we go. Spankin the monkey. How good is that? So there you go, guys. Get the Kickstarters going. Ring up Funko. Do whatever you need to do to get these things manufactured ASAP. So what do you reckon, old son?
There you go. I think I'm going to have to steal some of the pops from the store and get some model paint just to try and customize some of those myself.
Yeah, exactly right. I like this one. DJ said it's talking about silly hat night, so he's just corrected himself there. Silly hats. I wouldn't class Aaron's hat as being silly. If anything, it just brings out the colour of his eyes. What do you reckon? Makes me a tad more desirable, if you know what I mean. What do you reckon?
I'm just saying I'm not the one with the name on it.
Yeah, well, that's exactly. It's covering up the word Vanuatu, which I couldn't remove from the hat. So there you go. Imagine if Vanuatu, it just wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. So there you go. Does the GK come with a $2 coin? You think he should, eh? So there you go. But once you pop, you can't stop, and that's the most important thing. Even the Bob has said, even in pop stars, was it pop stars or pop stars? I suppose we would be pop stars, wouldn't you? So yeah, that's pretty groovy.
So you can actually buy blank white pops to customize, but I haven't seen one around for a while. I don't know if they're still available, but you know what? It might happen.
Well, if you got blank white pops, I'd give them to the vial, and I'd just be looking at the vial saying, dude, can you just violate this for me? Interpret that any way you like. So there you go. All right, we've got a big show tonight. Lots of really, really cool stuff to talk about. So we're going to kick it off, as always, with some new and funky stuff. So let's get going. All right, so what are we gas bagging about tonight, Mr. Aaron?
Well, all the news and all the new products tonight are pretty hot, and I can say that because they're all from the company Hot Toys. They're from different genres, and we've missed a couple of them over the last couple of months because we've looked at other things. So this is a bit of a Hot Toys catch-up.
I thought when you said they were hot, they'd just recently fallen off the back of the truck and ended up in your stores. There you go. Very, very cool. All right, we're kicking it off with a bit of Oki action.
So for those people who saw Spider-Man Far From Home over Christmas and the New Year, it's been one of the biggest movies ever. There was the return of a few villains. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say now that the villains from old Spider-Man movies returned, and probably the best villain, in my opinion, from the Spider-Man universe is Dr. Ock. And Hot Toys are releasing an absolutely fantastic version of Doc Ock from No Way Home. Its likeness is fantastic, as always with a lot of these things. The accessories that come with it are plentiful because it's one of their special editions. So it comes with various clothes, various accessories. But what I like the most is the adjustable Dr. Octopus extra arms, which is very cool because I think out of most of the characters I know, he's about the only one with arms like that, apart from maybe the new Borg Queen in the Picard series. but I digress. What do you think of Dr. Ock as a hot toy, Dax?
I don't know. I'm too busy dealing with a spoiler alert that you just given me there on Picard. So you're like, good on you. Yeah, it looks good. I mean, I haven't seen the recent movie, but I remember him from Spider-Man 2. And it's very funny. They keep calling him Ock, not Octopus or Octavius. Ock. It's a bit of a yeah. If he came from Australia, he'd be Doc Ocker, wouldn't he? Really? When you think about it?
It's like me. If you just put Doc Ock, you don't spell it wrong, so it makes it a bit easier. And we've had the best comment I think we've ever had in this show. Naked HD girls here. Like, how can we compete with that?
Yeah, I'm not going to put that on the screen. It's someone just trying to promote their own product. So there you go. Well done. So a spoiler alert and a spammer. You're doing very well in the same couple of sentences there, old son. Very good. So Doki Oki is the way to go. There's a new name there you got to remember. Doki Who and Doki Oki. Absolutely love it. William has joined us and he's a few minutes late. That's okay because he'll be leaving us soon for another stream. So no dramas. Everything is good. Let's move on.
Okay, the second hot toy we're looking at is a absolutely amazing one. Occasionally, Hot Toys will do vehicles and accessories in scale for the figures. And because they're 1/6 scale figure, any of these are quite large. Dags, you've seen the Batmobile that we had in the shop at one stage. They are doing the Back to the Future 2 version of the DeLorean. Now, they did the original Back to the Future DeLorean maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, and it sold out and is going for many times what it originally came out of. I think this one is better than the original because it's got the ability to turn it into the sort of hover mode, and you can display it as the flying DeLorean or the regular DeLorean. It's got all the features that it had in the movie. So another amazing product that's coming out for Hot Toys, and one that will drain your bank account.
So this is what kind of pisses me off about these sort of things, right? As you said, like in the movie, in the movies, there's like 3 different cars, and you can do collectibles for each of them, right? So if you say, "Oh, I'm a Back to the Future fan, I want a DeLorean," and you get the first one, and I have seen, I think Spankin's actually got one of the really, really big ones from probably the first movie. And if they do this really, really big ass one for the second movie, it's like freaking hell, I'm gonna spend $500 buying that. Then they do one for the third movie. And they probably do 2 versions because there's one with tires and one with the rail wheels, if I'm not mistaken. So they could do 4 versions. And it's a bloody nuisance because like they're doing it purely to dangle carrots in front of the collectors saying spend more money, buy these things. And it's almost a tad unfair. It's like you're being exploited just because in the films they just happen to have multiple versions of the same vehicle. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a bit...
So we've got a query about the price. They're on pre-order now. They should be available. Usually the big things like this don't sell out straight away because they are a bit of money. This one's going for about $1,000 on pre-order, though. If you shop around, you might find somewhere like Pop Culture that's doing like a 10% off if you pre-order or something like that. Usually by the time they come out, they're about 10% more, and as soon as they sell out, they double in value. So the original one came out at about $800. I think it was $799, and it goes now on the secondary market up to about $4,000. But now they've announced the second one. The original one has like dropped right back in value again. It's like that with collectibles, buying and selling. It's a bit like the stock market.
Yeah, you could go out and buy yourself a real DeLorean. I love this one. I'm sorry, I'm going to hang shit on this one. So Rusky Babes has made a mention. His character name is Dr. Octopus, but Spider-Man always calls him Doc Ock, and that's the usual fan name used. So Rusky Babes has now got the new nickname of Mr. Moto, Master of the Obvious. Dude, we're all fans here. We already knew that. So I know it was a Sci-Fi Zone fun factoid, but it's a factoid I think we already knew. But I appreciate your enthusiasm. It's absolutely fantastic. So there you go.
You mock him, but
a memory of an elephant. Yeah, well, memory of a nerd sometimes. But yeah, sorry, go on.
Okay, you mock him, but he comes up with some interesting factoids every week, which impress me because of his depth of knowledge on everything.
Totally agree with you. But on this one, it's like, yeah, we kind of already knew that one, but I do appreciate it. And with regarding the DeLoreans, yeah, collect them all. Yeah, I know. That really shits me, actually. And you just want one film with one item, and that's it. There's no others. It's just that's it. And Spankin has confirmed that he does have the first Back to the Future, and it's freaking enormous. It just fits in a glass cabinet. So there you go. All right,
could be worse. They could be doing the train.
Yeah, well, yeah, give them time. So there you go. All right, so the show's been out. It's been an absolute massive failure. The character that everybody loved has just been kicked in the guts, and no one gives a shit about him anymore. Who's going to run out and buy themselves a new version of good old Bubble Fat?
Well, I have got to say the likeness is dead on, and for everyone who did enjoy it, this is one of the QS series, which is quarter scale, so it's bigger than the regular Hot Toys. It's about the size of a premium format statue, and the great thing about Hot Toys quarter scale stuff is the look and finish is of a high-end statue, but you can pose them however you want. And this one is Boba Fett, which no matter what Dag said, it is going to sell out because he is one of the most popular characters from the Star Wars universe still. And this one comes with different things right down to hands that have the hologram of the Slave One projecting. Comes with a custom base with steps. You can see you can have him with his armor or without his armor. And as I was saying previously, he has an absolutely fantastic likeness of Gemma Morrison. I don't know if that flamethrower is there or if it's just a special effect, but knowing Hot Toys, that's probably one of the accessories, a big flamethrower burst as well. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's over here. See?
Oh, yep, there you go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, extra hands, extra accessories, and a whole lot of different stuff. I think that one will be quite a popular Hot Toy.
See, I disagree. I think that you're right. It looks like Tamara Morrison is absolutely fantastic and whatever else, but I think a lot of people were very jaded by the series. And if anything, they'll get it. They'll stick the helmet on the guy's head, and they'll never show him with his face. I think it's yeah, if it was a choice between this version and the original classic version, so just imagine they produced this version from the Empire film version. If that makes sense. Yeah. That would be a massive success. This one, I don't think so. Just because it's new and it fits in with the show, but the show wasn't a success. I know I'm repeating myself, but yeah, I don't think it's going to.
Just interesting little fact from Russell there. We'll have to pull that up.
Yeah, I know. What? Yeah, I know. I thought that was pretty funny. Obi-Wan Kenobi is a Jedi. Good on you, Russell. I love it.
You know what? Yep. We're giving spoilers out before the show has started. I mean, you're going to be put in the sin bin for that one, mate.
Yeah, absolutely love it. So there you go. Yeah, I love it from Thomas. You're applying for a new segment for the show. So no, you keep those fun factoids coming, Rusky Babes. Absolutely love them. So no dramas are there. There was a question here. Hang on. What? Hang on. Whoa. Stop. Now go.
Russell's Ripper Revelations. That's the new segment.
Absolutely love it. Andrew mentioned about the train. It is from the film. Remember when they got to drive the car behind the train or in front of the train? Actually, in front of the train, they put rails on it so it could go off the bridge. So it's from the film. Number 3. Very, very groovy. So, yes, that's my thoughts and views on the Boba Fett figure. But having said that, I do concede it does look pretty schmickaroo. There's no denying that. So, I mean, you look at this picture here, right? And just actually that part there, and you could say, well, it's the Empire Strikes Back version. I know it's not, but you could say it is. But if you say, oh, it's the Book of Boba Fett version, it suddenly loses interest. So that's my view anyway. So Yeah, and even Spankin, who's a humongous Boba Fett fan, tends to agree with me on this one. So there you go. Bleeding obvious sci-fi facts. Absolutely love it. So there you go. So one of the funniest things you can have is when you produce a fact and then someone else says, actually, you're wrong. This is the actual fact. And suddenly it's nerds at 20 paces. And I tell you what, I've been in that situation plenty of times, as I'm sure you have too. So, yes,
Yeah.
very, very good. And as Aaron will say, one of the funniest things that happens is when people come into the store telling him stuff that they think is true, and it's not even remotely close to true. And Aaron's going, wow, that's really interesting. That's really cool. I didn't know that. And it's all just complete rubbish. They have no idea what they're talking about. You have to take one for the team, don't you, dude?
We do, because do you know what? Everybody's right from a certain point of view.
No, they're not. All right, so speaking of all the things exciting, we were talking about pops earlier, and I'll tell you what, this is an absolute ripper. Just to say, how can you exploit things even more than they have been exploited? It's time for this.
Useless pop of the week!
What do you reckon, Mr. Aaron?
So I don't know which one we went with, because I found some pretty useless pops this week. Was it the first or the second one that I sent you, Dags?
Yeah, so Aaron sent me through the first one, and I thought, yeah, that's an absolute classic. But the second one was an absolute ball terror. Gotta love it. What is the deal with this? And this is opening up a massive can of worms for pop exploitation. Go for it, dude.
Well, this is a pop figure based on a character painted on a Queen album. And now, I guess I can understand if you've got a piece of art, you can make a pop from it. And I guess that some of the more popular albums and artworks from album covers could make good pops. This is number 6 in the series, so there were a couple of others I looked at, and I did think, oh, you know what, they're okay. There was Eddie from the Iron Maiden covers and things like this. But this one is, I guess, the automaton from the, what was it, the News of the World cover for the Police, I'm getting them all wrong, from the Queen album in the 70s or early 80s. And if you didn't have the box and you didn't have the cover there, you would have no idea. It would be like, what is it, some sort of Cylon-y alien from a B-grade movie or something like that. This really shows me the exploitation that Funko are doing, where they're really reaching the point where just about anything could be made into a pop figure. Can you imagine anyone wanting this as a pop, even as a Queen fan?
Yeah, it looks complete shit, doesn't it? It doesn't even come remotely close to what's on the cover and the picture behind it. Ange has asked if we've seen this. No, we haven't. This is the first time. And the funny thing is, and this is what I'm concerned about, it opens up the whole thing of exploiting people from album covers, right? Characters, and you mentioned about Eddie from Iron Maiden. Now, if you look back at a file from months ago where we looked at some of those really dodgy album covers from way back then, imagine doing pops of some of those people. You'd have to go back and find. I can't remember where it was.
Do you know what it'd be, Dags? It'd be the Lord Touched Me collection.
Yeah, that's it. And you make pops about that. So, yes, you do wonder what the deal is. But no, I just look at that and they've said, oh, album covers. Yeah, let's use characters from that, and it's just going to open up a massive can of worms. But yeah, in this instance, you're right. You look at it by itself, like just. If I get my mouse over here, and you go, mate, what the Ken hell is that? And I don't think even Queen fans would guess as to what that is. So
the other thing
very,
is,
very dodgy.
I would have thought like the general big black pop eyes would have been better. I don't know why they've gone with the bright red eyes, because it's not really a feature on the album cover at all.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with that. Angie's made a mention about the pops at the start of the show. Obviously, we've shown the ones of Aaron and myself, but the ones of Spankin, Greg King, and the Viola were brand new. I know that because I only got the picture a couple of hours ago. So good stuff. Wonder if the original artist of the album cover earned some coin from this. Probably not, because the design is so different. I don't know. Maybe they do. It wouldn't be the original artist. It'd be whoever.
Yeah.
Owns
All
the
they
rights,
have to do was say inspired by, and they avoid having to pay them.
Yes, album cover. It is just, they're just waiting to be exploited. So
well,
yes, indeed.
The other thing that I think is just total exploitation. Do you know these are more expensive than the regular pops because they've just put it in a bigger box with the album cover behind it? So you pay $10 more for the packaging.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I love that one. Yeah, it's the Metropolis Maria gone wrong. But you are right. But the art is in the background. You're right, Joe. But if the art was not there, you would not know for love of money what the hell this thing is. So, yes, indeed. But anyway, the key thing is Hang on, you showed all the useless pops at the start of the show. Oh, finally got the joke. Sorry, Ange, I'm a bit slow on the uptake. Oh, yeah, the ones that we showed at the start. Yeah, they were about as useless as tits on a bull, as they say. So, no denying that. We finally got there in the end. So, yes. Anyway, it's complete tripe. Run out and buy it and have some fun with it. It should be worth millions in the future. And you're right. Actually, Ange is right. It should come with a record. Yeah, exactly right. A record of how crappy these things happen to be.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. This is a very exciting segment. As always, it's time for a little bit of this. Got $2 and away we go. All right. What are we talking about tonight, Mr. Aaron?
Well, Greg King has been on steroids this year so far, buying so many things for this segment. And the fantastic thing is we've got a wide and varied amount of things turning up, but nothing has actually turned up yet. The one report I can give is the Books of the Dead, which I was just about to do a claim on because we weren't hearing anything, finally got a tracking number. Hooray! But when we put the tracking number in Australia Post, it came up as not known. Boo! So that might turn up in the next week or two. This week, Greg has been trawling the internet and found some amazing valued horror night lights. Now, these are from different horror movies, and they come with classic scenes that light up. I guess you could have them beside your bedside table, or you could probably do a whole display of them on a bookshelf or something like that, and they'd look quite cool. And there was a plethora of them to choose from. And on this page, you can see there was Pennywise the Clown down the sewer from It, and then there's Godzilla stomping across Tokyo. There's Samara from The Ring crawling out of the lit-up TV. There's Jason Voorhees standing underneath the pier at Camp Crystal Lake. And of course, we've got Freddy Krueger in a classic Freddy pose. But there were so many to choose from, but he didn't choose these ones. We just showed these because these are some of the other ones that were in stock, all more than half price with free shipping if you bought two. If we go to the next slide, these are the ones Greg chose. The classic Alien. So we've got the Alien. I don't know if it's really from the first movie coming out of the water. I think that was probably from Alien Resurrection. But that one is pretty cool with a very industrial background and some green water. And then we've got Michael Myers standing on the patio of his house for Halloween. So these are the two we bought. They were $99, reduced to $50 because they were half price. And then we got a bigger discount for buying two of them, so they were $65 for the two, and because we got two, they were free shipping. So these looks like an absolute bargain if they actually turn up. What do you think of these, Dags?
I'm going to go with what Christy said. Put them in the kids' room and they will never sleep again. One can only hope, because there's nothing more enjoyable than hearing kids just not being able to sleep. And I just got to put the good old Rusky babes. I love it, right? Rip it off the card. Fun factoid. Queen were at the Sunbury Rock Festival, but got booed off stage. As a factoid, who cares? Oh, jeepers. Absolutely.
Do you know what?
Love it.
I cannot wait for some of the factoids we're going to get in the last half of the show with all the movie posters. It's going to be factoids flying off the screen.
I'll tell you what. Yeah. Yes, there's always room for a good factoid. What can I say? So, good stuff. Yes, they look good, and it will be interesting to see if and when, more if than when, these things ever turn up, which is particularly groovy.
So this is the stuff we've got banked that is apparently on its way. We've got the replica Maltese Falcon. We've got the Hobbit Burrow from Lord of the Rings. We've got Falcor, the Luck Dragon. We've got the Worm and Sir Didymus from Labyrinth. We've now got the Alien display, the Halloween display, and then on the far right there, we've got the Book of the Dead and the Book of Life from the Mummy, which are supposed to be eminently delivered anytime now. So hopefully next week we'll be able to do a review on them, fingers crossed. What do you think the chances of any of this being good is?
Big fat goose eggs. Carol, like the Ring one. Yeah, that's the picture of the Ring one, Carol. Doesn't mean that's what's going to be turning up. So there you go. It's part of the deal. Yes, which is particularly groovy. And
what I found surprising was I think Greg King is a bit of a prophet because he's got his garage sale set up here, and it looks very much like what's just happened in half of Australia with the flooding.
Yeah, I love it. I like this one from Gavin. Malt chocolate Ford Falcon. Yeah, good on you. Yeah, good to see you're using a natural disaster as a joke. So, yeah, You're unbelievable.
But you
You're
told
doing
me
it.
not to make any jokes about the war, so I
Yeah,
just
exactly right. With all the, yeah, it gave us a spoiler alert for Picard earlier, and yeah, all the rest of it. You're doing well. All right, kids. Now let's not muck around anymore. Right? We got a new segment we need to chuck in. It's absolutely brand new. It'll probably be a one-off, and this is very important. So all those people who are watching right now is mainly for the male audience, but the females can do this too. Very important. You've got to pay attention to what we're going to be showing you, because we as well, more Aaron than me, are going to show you how to get around a really serious problem that a lot of collectors face. And for that reason, we've got no alternative but to call it this: Spankin's Guide to Slipping It In.
So yes, as Dags was saying, one of the issues that I often talk about to many collectors in the shop and talk about with friends who collect as well is when the collection hits critical mass and significant others do not want any more collectibles coming to the house and getting into the house. And so you have to agree not to buy anymore. But do you know what? Collecting is like an addiction. So even though you agree not to buy anymore, in all cases, most of the time, something will keep appearing and you have to get it into the house. And this is Spankin's Guide to Slipping It In, so you can get it in without anyone seeing what you're doing.
I love it when you said in all cases, most of the time. That's just contradicted yourself.
Yes.
It's either all the time or most of the time.
The sentence got away from me.
Yeah, exactly right. All right. Okay. Now, yeah, you're right, Bob. Who gives a factoid? Well, I'll tell you what. Okay. So this is how you get now, fans. Don't be crude about this. This is how you slip it in, spanking style.
So in Spankin the Monkey's case, he often indulges on a Friday night drink and other substance and then goes online and buys stuff on eBay. And this is his general eBay purchases over the weekend. Usually he doesn't actually remember what he's bought. So this is the stuff that he might be trying to slip into his house. So we've got like a tasteful piece of artwork of a monkey at a dinner party. We've got a life-size cardboard cutout of Danny DeVito. We've got a squirrel riding a toy horse. We've got a deck of kitten cards. We've got a standee of Nicolas Cage dressed as a hamburger. And we've got a grapple line with hook on it. So Spankin has basically got wasted, and then the next day he's discovered these are the things that are turning up to his house. Would you have any idea, Dags, of how to slip these into your house?
Not really, but what I do know is there's always time for lubrication. All right. So, fans, you want to know how to slip it in? Here we go.
Yeah, the PC is from the 80s, but Spankin is from the 80s as well, so that's a perfect match. Now, when Spankin isn't smuggling people in the slave trade in the back of his car, he often hides collectibles in the boot of the car, because not a lot of people will actually go and check the boot of your car for collectibles. If you're buying stuff and they're turning up at the door, it's often hard to sneak it in when there's people around. But don't worry about that. If you go and put it in the boot of the car, no one is going to go and check the boot of the car before you try to get them into the house. So what you've got to do is wait till the middle of the night when everybody else is asleep, and then go out to the car then and sneak it in the middle of the night. Now, you might have the issue where a significant other will notice the next day that there is collectibles added to your collection. But as we know, the best place to hide a tree is in a forest. And we've got that wonderful display there. And I bet no one noticed that the squirrel riding the horse has now been slipped into the display discreetly without any problem with a significant other finding out that you've spent your hard-earned cash on a useless collectible.
Now, we might be making a bit of a joke about this, but I know for a fact, and there's a couple of them watching this show right now who've had to do stuff like this just to get their stuff slipped in, eh? So there you go.
I don't know what you're talking about. So, okay, you got caught with it. Well, don't despair. There's still a way out. There's a few different, replies you can give to, have you been buying more collectibles? The first one there is, I sold the one I have, and this one is an upgrade. So you might have the Nicolas Cage dressed as a hamburger standee, and you can say your one was damaged and you sold it and you've bought a new one. So you haven't really wasted any money because you've upgraded it. And some people will believe that. Most people won't, but some people will. Okay, it's not new. I've had this a long time. Now, this is one that you can use if you have something like a poster or a display that comes into the house, and you can just say it was in the garage or it was in the wardrobe and I've had to move around and now it's out. It's not a new item. It's been sitting there forever.
So with Bob, right, I can just imagine the missus saying, what are they doing? I'm ripping off the card right now. And Bob saying, they're talking about useless pop of the week and Greg King's cheaper things. Don't come in here. It's a boring segment.
No, he probably said they're talking about Spankin the monkey, and it is what you think it is.
Oh, look at this one. You sneak model kids in the garage while the wife is walking the dog. Everybody's got a story. Keep going.
Everybody's done it. And the last one there is when you get a tasteful piece of art like the monkey at a dinner party, you can say it's an investment. I'm not buying this as a collectible that I'm going to have on my wall forever. I'm going to have this as an investment, and when it appreciates in value, like all nice pieces of art do, then I'm going to sell it. So I'm buying it as an investment. So there's three different excuses, Dave, you can tell to Tash. I mean, you.
I can see a whole lot of dudes getting together going, which one of these three do you use? It's like, I use the first one, who's the second, and I use the third. So yeah, but what happens when you are in a bit of a pickle?
Well, if those don't work, if you've bought a grappling hook and a rappel line, you can always say, I need it for work. I don't know why Spankin would need that for work, but obviously that would be something that would be plausible.
But you know why? Because it's something he's struggling to grapple with.
And this is a bit like I was upgrading, but I sold other bits to buy this. And this is one of the things where your wife or your husband or your significant other says, enough, you've got enough collectibles, you can't add any more to the pile. So what you do, you say, I sold 2 items to buy this one item that is smaller than one I sold. I'm actually buying stuff, but I'm downsizing. Now that makes a lot of sense. That's a good argument.
I love it. And Joe said, yeah, you're using this for research purposes. Now everybody who thought this was a joke segment is really paying attention, because then we got the ultimate. If you got caught with the item, what other excuse can you use to get out of it? And of course, there's the old classic, you've got to turn it back on the accuser. It's this. It
was a gift for you, but now you've ruined it. Now, this is a fantastic one, because not only are you defending yourself for buying something, but you're actually you're making the person feel bad for questioning buying it. And because it's a gift, it doesn't matter that it's a squirrel riding a horse. It's the thought that counts. So if at Christmas you go and buy a whole lot of Ghostbusters merchandise for yourself, and then your wife finds the receipts, you can kind of go, well, I was buying it for you. And now you've ruined it by finding your own Christmas present.
That is absolutely love it. The couple of classic. Russell said it's part of my Batman costume. Oh dear, and yeah, classic one. I won it at a convention. Yeah, exactly right. And then she says, "But you didn't go to a convention." Oh shit, I didn't think of that.
Do you know what this is? This is like sounding like Family Feud, where we've had the top answers and then we're revealing a couple of the other ones that nobody got.
Yeah, I love this one. I usually go on things at a garage and then he'll go and buy it.
I got it for $2 at King's Garage now.
That's the other one. I've had it the whole time. I've just decided to bring it into the house. Oh, goodness gracious me.
So I think everyone can thank Spankin the monkey for that public service, and I think everyone here has learnt something that they can possibly use in real life in the future if this happens to them.
Love it. And Marcus said, yeah, he has the old cunning plan, eh? Yes, just buy an expensive handbag. Exactly right. Absolutely fantastic. So there you go. All right, very, very cool. All right, that's our segment. I mean, useful tips. Don't forget, if it works and you get away with it, you heard it here first, all right? You can never knock, don't forget this, fans, you can never knock a squirrel on a horse.
Now, if anybody else out there has any curly questions or situations they would like to get Spankin the monkey on, just let us know and we'll get the monkey onto it and see what we can come up with.
I love this one. Colin said he wanted on rip it off the card. Just ask me, slip me a 50 and I'll tell you other half anything you want me to tell us. So there you go. Absolutely. Yeah. Spankin's using the excuse that he's buying it for his kid as an investment. The kid's just barely 1 year old now. So there you go. And yes, deviousness is what it's all about. We're collectors. We've got to look out for each other. So there you go. Very, very cool. All right, speaking of looking out for things, it's an absolute ripper. It's time for a little bit of this. The old Lord Vile's a vile file.
So Lord Vile has been pretty grounded for the last couple of months. We've had some different segments that have kind of been local. Before we get into this month's one, we did have one thing sent in, which kind of Lord Vile, it amused him in his mailbag, the Vile File Scarlet Letters. Dear Lord Vile, I saw this doing the rounds on Facebook this week and wondered if you had any use for it in your segment. Now, it kind of is a bit like, it is a bit like the misplaced stickers, but this is apparently real. I did see it on Facebook as well, come up on some of my friends' pages. And this is apparently one of the Netflix configurations of new releases. And you can see it is a poorly chosen lot of movies where you've got Michael Jackson, something coming out of Billy's Jeans, and then you've got like Kevin from Home Alone.
Did you realise that the reason they had to release the Michael Jackson thing on DVD is because he was a bit hard up?
Well, yeah. Well, he is stiff, but that's because he's dead.
Oh, God, you're killing me. You're right, Christy. Yeah, bucket at the ready. So there you go. I didn't even pick up on that when I just saw the picture earlier today. I just didn't even register as to what that was. But, oh, God.
Do you know what? It's one of those things where 2 of them in a row would have been pretty bad, but 3 of them, they're really running the trifecta there, aren't they?
Sure.
I think that's
and you know what? We haven't even started the segment yet. That's the funny thing about it. Oh, my God, you're killing me. All right, let's move on before I get myself into more trouble than it's worth. All right, let's go.
So we've had Lord Vile send us postcards from Disneyland and postcards from India, but who would have known some of the best art that Lord Vile has ever found has been from some of the video and comic movie artists from Ghana. Now, these are all real artists that are employed to do posters for video libraries and cinemas for releases that come out here. And it's interesting, they've got a bit of a following online, kind of that so bad it's good artwork, I guess. And these are mainly painted on flour sacks because it's all they have to paint on. They don't have canvases there, but Lord Vile has decided to add some to his Vile collection at the Vile Villa, and went on a purchasing trip to Ghana, and he's brought back some of his favourites to share with us.
Good stuff. And you get to guess, I think, is that right, dude, as to what these things represent?
It is. So what he's done, he's cut like sections out of the posters. There's 3 on each slide, and then we'll have a quick guess to see if anyone can guess what they are, because sometimes it's surprising how they aren't what you may think they would be. So if anyone wants to give a quick guess of what these movie posters would be, there's one on the left there, which kind of is a surrealistic, it almost looks like Murkamora painting. There's one down the bottom there of is that Thelma and Louise maybe, and then is that Swamp Thing on the other side? I am just not sure.
So you got Tremors and Predator. A couple of them are pretty easy, but one of them, that top left one, I got to admit, is a bit unusual, but maybe you're right. Aliens and Predator, yeah, Tremors, yeah, Aliens, they're pretty obvious, aren't they?
Yeah.
Tremors and Swamp Thing, I'm not sure after that. Tremors, everybody seems to think it's all Tremors. Do you want to show the answers?
Let's
Star
use
Wars, yeah.
Star Wars.
Yeah, good on you. Let's have
But
a
you
look.
never know. So we had Tremors, Aliens, and Predator, which is really interesting. But yes, Predator or what would be the question. I do not remember the scene in Predator where Swamp Thing came out of the water carrying a naked woman. Do you remember that scene, Dags? Obviously,
That was a deleted scene, dude.
Yeah, only available in the Ghana home video version, I think.
Yeah. Bit of a spoiler alert with a face hugger on the dude, eh? But yeah, good old Tremors. Yeah, that's a charming looking image, I got to say. So there you go.
Now here's three interesting ones. Haven't had to change much from the posters at all to disguise what these ones are. There's three posters there. Do we want to have a guess at what they are?
Yeah, you're right. That's in the African cut. Yeah, exactly right. So, hey, everybody. Yeah, well, the one on the left, I think, is pretty straightforward. The one in the middle, yeah, but the one on the right, I don't know. So, yes, what does everybody think what they could be? So, yeah, it's interesting, the style of artwork, isn't it? It's very, very unique. Yeah, Andrew said India. That's obviously the top middle. Although, what are they doing to Marion? Yeah, I assume that is Marion. It's like, bloody hell. Having a bit of a hard day at the office. So there you go.
Well, if that's Marion, they fed her to the stakes while India escapes, I think.
Yeah, I think Christie might be on the money on this one. So there you go. Yeah, Die Hard. Yeah, Die Hard's come up. Die Hard on the right. Carol said Terminator. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. So yeah, hard to say. Good old Predator. We already had Predator, so it would be Predator again. I wouldn't think. So there you go. What was that? The last one was Escape from Nairobi. Yeah, exactly right. Very good. Beetlejuice. Oh, okay. We didn't see that one coming. So that's a bit left and arachnophobia. Yeah, okay. Let's have a look. No one got it.
Starship Troopers. Now, no one got the middle one because it's Raiders of the Lost Arse.
Yeah.
And Die Hard. So a few people got the Die Hard. It is one of those interesting things where a local interpretation of what was in the movies can be somewhat different from what we know and love. It's interesting because usually they go for the extremely violent, and there were no heads exploding on the Raiders one. But the Starship Troopers one is interesting because we just took the name out and still you couldn't get it from the whole poster.
Yeah, I thought it might have been aliens, but we already had aliens. And I thought, well, it's got the spider thing going on and the pulse rifle and all the rest of it. But yeah, I wouldn't have guessed Starship Troopers. So there you go. So yeah, Lost R's. Yeah, no, exactly right. I had to confirm with Aaron. I said, is that a spelling mistake? He said, no, that's exactly how it was. So very good. Yeah. All right.
Now, these ones are a bit easier, aren't they? I mean, we can see the main characters. So these are going to be exactly what you think they are. There's it looks like a mermaid and a exterminator or something on the top left there. And then there's a city exploding on the top right. And down the bottom, there's two members, a really dodgily drawn of the Avengers. But which Avengers movie is it?
Yes, that is a very good question, actually. Chainsaw Massacre. I don't know which one would that be. Splash. Yeah, I think you're right on that one. Avengers. So Angels said the first Avengers. Which I guess, I mean, good old Captain America. I mean, what have they done with the stars, man? They've just gone completely nuts on it all. So there you go. Lost his ass ages ago. Good on you. So what does everybody? Yeah, I think I would agree with you. I think Splash on the top left is probably the go. Clearly, there's a Superman logo in there somewhere. Thomas has said Iron Man. Yeah, maybe. Although Captain America looks like he's in it. So you see, I think the top one is a tricky one. Maybe Justice League. Maybe, I don't know. So could be very interesting to see what the end result is. What does everybody think? Moneybag Sullivan, Splash, Captain America, Civil War, Man of Steel. Oh, yeah, because they blew up the city in Man of Steel, don't they? So, yeah, could be too. All right, let's have a quick sticky. Huh?
Let's go. Let's see what they are.
Yep, there we go.
So it is Splash, and it's, of course, everyone's favorite Avengers movie, X-Men, and Superman. So, well, the X-Men one really is amazing because can you imagine if you're a little kid over there and you're like, oh, the X-Men movie with the crossover with the Avengers, and you'd get an hour into it and go, when are the Avengers turning up? Oh, they didn't turn up.
Yeah, with future movies, they probably will make an appearance at some point. Yeah, it's like, that's just crazy, isn't it? So, yeah, absolutely fantastic. And yeah, Superman was the Superman one. So, yeah, very, very cool.
Now, this one's an interesting one. Again, haven't had to take much of the poster out. So you should just be able to tell it. We've just taken out the names, basically, of the movies from these ones. So there's three very easily identified movies in those three posters.
No. On the right, it looks like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, isn't it? But it probably wouldn't be. So, yeah. Anne just said King Kong for the middle one. That's probably a good guess. I don't know which version of King Kong, but anyway, I'm not sure of the one on the left. Oh, that could be. Oh, hang on. No, I've got no idea. What would that be, kids? Twilight. Oh, yeah, okay. I didn't see that one coming. Yeah, I don't know. That's a. Yeah. Did you guess these when you first saw them?
Some of them I thought were very, very weird. The Vial has a very strange sense of humor when it comes to this stuff.
Face Off. Yeah, I don't know. King Kong. Yeah, okay. American Werewolf in London. Oh God. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Hang on. Sorry. Highlander. King Kong the Fly. Oh Jesus. Where are you going with that, money bags? Oh Christ, Russell, his fun factoids. Yeah, good on you. Dude, move on, Rusky, babe. You spent half an hour typing it out. We've long since moved on. So there you go. We've got for Face Off, and up here we've got Teen Wolf, American Werewolf in London. All right, what's the answer? The answer is this.
Jeepers Creepers, King Kong, and Psycho. I don't know with the Psycho, like a split personality where one personality is the monster. King Kong kind of looks more like Congo to me. Fay Ray there got a really bad portrait. Like that's a pretty bad Fay Ray. Jeepers Creepers I would never have got. I do not remember the soldier down the bottom in Jeepers Creepers at all. Yes, WTF. That's why the Vial likes them so much. These are going up with his Bollywood collection in the Vial Villa. He's suitably impressed by his pickup on this art purchasing trip.
Yep, and there'll be people in these countries going to the movies based on these posters, which is absolutely fantastic. So what are you trying to tell us about all these posters there, Mr. Aaron?
Well, he has perused them, chose the ones he wants for his wall, taken them home, mounted them, and then violated them.
Absolutely fantastic. So there you go. If you're ever in a different country, look at buying something, because we talk about movie posters, and tonight we're talking about movie posters, funnily enough. So there you go. Better than the Bollywood collection. Absolutely magnificent. Rand said it was Twilight. Thought it was Twilight. The answer is not even remotely close. So there you go. Very cool stuff. All right, now, we've got our next segment that's coming up, which is particularly groovy, but there's a slight change to it. And you'll see it in a second because we're going to be discussing something very cool.
Ooh, baby, do you know that's what...
All right, Mr. Aaron, what are we on about tonight?
Well, we might have noticed tonight's theme is about movie posters because we're going to be looking at classic sci-fi posters later. So we're looking at posters, but we are doing something a bit special. We're not looking at eBay tonight. Prop Store are famous for doing poster auctions of some of the high-end and rare posters from around the world. So this is an this is a London Pop Store auction actually from I think 2020, where I found some really interesting posters. You can probably assume none of these are going to be $2 in Greg King's garage sale, but you never know. So there's some interesting sci-fi posters from the past that would probably be too highbrow for the Vial Villa.
Mark has made a mention that the Vial file is fairly tame today. Yeah, we can't be completely like puerile every single week. Sometimes we do have to be a bit G-rated. So even if we are showing posters of people getting eaten, their faces ripped off and stuff like that. So yes, we were tame, but the pictures weren't. So there you go. What do you reckon, dude?
Yes, yeah, we've got to come up for breath sometime, don't we?
Very good. Now, Andrew's already said 462. He hasn't even seen the first item. So once again, just take a guess as to what you think these items sold for. This is from the Prop Store. So some very, very groovy stuff. So what have we got?
So this is lot 324, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, an original 1956 one-sheet poster. So all of the posters tonight are original. Yes, I think that's going to win it. Well, you never know. You know, I think it's one of those things where these posters have become pieces of art. And so they're affordable for people who can't afford, you know, the tens of thousands and $20,000, $30,000 pieces of art, but they are collectible and will appreciate in value. So they're still attainable to people if you want to buy your favorite poster, I would think.
So the key thing is American posters tend to be worth more than anybody else. And obviously the condition of the poster is very important, but the fact that this is coming from the Prop Store auction, there was probably a few bucks associated with some of these. And you're right, Carol, chances are, yeah, all those dollar signs are probably not far from the truth. So let us have a look. So Andrew said 462, and I'll take a stab right now and say that's probably not going to work it. The Vial, because the Vial loves in violating the body snatchers, is where are we? 200. You have to go on dollars there, dude, because we're not converting to pounds from pounds. Thomas is at 1350. Moneybag Sullivan is 750. Rusky Babes is at 5,000. Natasha and the little dude, haven't seen them on the show for a long time, is 2665. Bob has said 4,000. Mark has said 5,000. Big dollars being chucked around tonight. Colin has said 660. Carol's at 11,000. Geez, if we could add all these numbers up, we'd make a fortune, wouldn't we? 6,000 for Gavin. William said 2,000, which is particularly groovy. And there's some posters on the garage wall, $2 each, but not. I don't think that's going to cut the mustard, old son. So there you go. Very, very cool. Christy said 15.90. So there you go. The prop store stuff. Yes, you do need to sell a kidney or two, or if you're in Tasha's case, the little dude, just to pay for something. So anyway, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1956. I mean, how amazing is that? US one-sheet poster. Be absolutely spectacular because it went along with a fantastic movie as well. How much do you reckon it went for? Time for some big dollars or not?
Did we get someone say 1,600? Oh, Christy on 1590. That's pretty good.
Anything you want to say while I'm looking at some other things?
No, it's just one of those things where what I was saying I think is true. That is expensive for a poster, but it's not beyond anyone's budget if you saved up for it. So if you did have a poster that you loved from one of your favorite movies, you could conceivably save up and get them because they do turn up in different auctions. There are people that collect them and they are lovely pieces of art. And I think they're a great investment too.
See, I would class that as being too cheap, 1,600 for 1956 for a movie that was quite successful and quite popular. Yeah, I think that's a bit of a bargain. But yeah, Christy, you got it. You just got to cough up an extra $10 and you're good to go. So
the other thing
is me. So hang on, is Jason and the Argonauts poster got eaten by snails? Oh, well, there you go. They would have done it frame by frame because of the old Harryhausen style of doing things. So very, very cool. All right, where are we? This is here we are. Item number 2. Go for it.
So this is Thunderbirds Go from 1966. It's a UK quad poster, which is basically a fancy way of saying it's the vertical one and slightly bigger than a one sheet. But this is a fantastic, unfortunately the pictures on these are quite small, but this is a fantastic colour piece of art from the Thunderbirds Go movie that was released in the cinema globally. I remember seeing it being in the Valhalla a couple of times years ago as well. Thunderbirds is one of those very popular franchises that have survived right from the 60s right till now, where there's still collectors. So conceivably, this could go for a lot of money. Do you think this would go for more or less than Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
I would say it would go for more because it's more of a popular franchise. And it's worth noting, I think quad posters are specifically English only. I don't think anybody else does quads. Yeah. So there you go. Let's have a look. Colin has said 1,000. Rusky Baby said 7,000. Ange has decided to put in some proper bids at 100 grand. Holy guacamole. You can buy yourself some real Thunderbirds for that. 2,000 for Mark. Moneybag Sullivan has said 1,500. 15,000, sorry. Bob is at 3,500. Gavin is at 12,000. Thomas is at 6,500. Violating the Thunderbirds. Oh, yeah, I like to see him do that. Is the Viol at 54 grand. Christy, who won the last one and did very, very well at 2,200. Carol has said 10,500. Where's Jeffro? Probably getting ready to pack his bags to go to Celebration. William said 3,500. And there you go. So, yes, indeed. Very, very groovy stuff. I think that's about as far as we need to go with this. But yes, UK quad poster 1966, the Thunderbirds is indeed a very, very popular franchise. So you would think there'd be a few bucks involved with this, considering it's the first issue release. How much do you reckon it went for? It went for a whopping $5,000.
There you go. Another one that I thought would probably go for more than that. I think that's probably reasonable. We've all seen before on eBay posters go for that much. So I would say for anyone who does stick to eBay, I guess don't be too scared of some of the other auction houses. No, that one's way out. That's $54,000.
Oh, it is too. Sorry. I thought, yep. Sorry. My mistake. All right. I'll keep looking there. Thomas, there's a lot that are in between. So Thomas was at 65 and he's $1,500 over. William is that, and he's also $15, $100 under. And I don't know, you guys are going to have to split it up between yourselves. I think tear it in half. So
What we'll
there
do,
you go.
yeah, tear it carefully down the middle at one of the perforations, and they can have half each.
William was closest. Yeah, I don't know. So okay, I'm shit ass with maths, but yeah, $1,500. So if I'm not mistaken. So there you go. Anyway, you guys can have some fun. So there you go. Very good. It is a tie, which is particularly groovy. So, but yeah, $5,000, still a lot of green, but it's a bigger poster than usual. And if it's in really good nick, nicely, because I don't know if these things are framed, but in the pictures they look framed. That would be very spectacular and would be worth every single cent, which is pretty good.
Now here's an interesting poster. It's The Thing. The Thing, the original and the new version are one of my favorite science fiction movies ever. This is the original 1951 version, The Thing from Another World. So it's the original US one sheet poster again. I think this one could be a ripper.
Yeah, I think this is the teaser for it because they did produce other posters after this one, and because this is just the words. Yeah, I like that. Natural or supernatural? Well, obviously, supernatural. You wouldn't hear that word mentioned very often back in the day, but it's particularly groovy. But yes, I totally agree. There were 3 Thing movies made, and I love all 3 of them, which is fantastic. Angela said 4,500. Natasha and the little dude is at 10,000. Colin has said 3,500. Bob has said 2,500. Moneybag Sullivan 6,000. Christy said 6,500. I would use the Invasion of the Body Snatchers poster as a guide for this because they're roughly the same era. It's a few years earlier, but still. Carol said 12,900. Violating the Thing. Well, that's something I'd love to see. Is the Violet at 12,000? William is at 7,000. So there you go. Very, very groovy. What does everybody reckon? I mean, it's a great poster, but it's not exactly the most pretty thing to look at because it's just all text. Thomas has gone for 300. Yeah, right. Oh, Gavin, $1 million. Yes, very, very groovy. And William, I don't know if I said William, but William said 7,000, particularly good. All right, so The Thing from Another World, outstanding movie. Howard Hawks, absolutely love it. What do you reckon it went for? It's hard to imagine these things are like 70 years ago, and they're just still being sold off and around the place, which is spectacular. Love it. It went for a whopping, remember what we said for the Invasion of the Body Snatchers poster? $1,600 again.
Yeah. So again, if you were a classic sci-fi fan and you liked this movie, I think that's a fair price for something like that. The only thing when you buy from prop store, then you get hit with a seller's premium, and then you get hit by all these different other fees, and by the time you actually pay for it, it's more like $2,000. But still, a rare poster you don't see around locally at all, and a really historical piece because The Thing is one of those seminal movies that people refer back to all the time.
Yeah, I think Bob has it, and he gets a lot of change as well, which is probably used for the shipping and the framing, which is particularly groovy. So well done to you. Absolutely fantastic. And we've got a new player in the game too. Good old Michael. Michael's joining us, which is absolutely fantastic. But Michael, sorry, son, you're a tad on the cheap side on that one. So very, very good. Yes, good stuff. I like this one. Yes, keep watching the skies. Yeah, totally true. All right, here we go. Oh, look at this. Oh, it's something a bit more new.
Planet of the Apes. So this is a UK quad poster again from 1968, the first Planet of the Apes movie, which out of the original series, most people agree is probably the best one. Again, unusual one because it'd be desirable in America because it's different from the US version. A great character poster because it has all the main characters pictured on the poster, which is different from the US version. So this is a big classic poster from a popular franchise that is still chugging along today.
Yep, totally agree. And yes, once again, as I said, the quads are bigger and they're English. So yes, they're for that reason they're a tad, and they would obviously use different artwork. So it's kind of cool stuff. In fact, the original one sheet poster for Planet of the Apes was a tad ordinary. It looked a bit like Invasion of the Body Snatchers with all the yellow and the orange and whatever else. So this one looks very groovy. All right, Christy has said 2,900. Ange is at 3,900. Bob is at 1,550. Rusky Babes, I just lost it. Rusky Babes is at 12,000. Michael, good to see Michael joining the show, 1,100. Gavin, 1 cent. I hope that's a spelling error, son, because he got no open hell getting that one. And Natasha and the little dude is at 5,600. Thomas has said 8,800. 4,000. You damn dirty apes. Yeah, exactly right. Yes, yeah, damn them all to hell. Exactly right. Violating the apes as one should. Keep your hands on my poster. Is the Violet for 6,000? William is at 4,500, and Colin is at $4,000. Yes, exactly right. And it is the first of the series, which is particularly groovy. Carol said 2,900. Good stuff. All right. So, how much do you reckon it went for? Planet of the Apes 1968 quad poster from UK. It would look awesome framed on the wall, I've got to say. And it went for a whopping 1,600. It seems to be an ongoing theme here, dude. What's going on?
Did anyone pick that?
Not exactly, no.
I don't think they did. I thought it might be something after they saw a couple that they might get the theme I was going for. I, of course, deliberately try and do ones that are either higher or lower than you would expect, or follow different patterns and things like that. So there's a few close guesses. I think, yeah, Bob has got it, hasn't he? Just $50 off, so pretty close again.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he does too. So well done. You can use the $50 for shipping, old son, which is particularly groovy. So good stuff, sir. So well done to you. All right, now we're going to go completely a bit more modern. It's time for this one. Oh, Gavin, mate, don't put 1 cent in for this.
Now, I'd be interested to know if Gavin has this poster, because we have a bit of a Yoda collector here. I bet he will put more than 1 cent in for this. This is one of those sort of legendary posters where, because George Lucas was very conscientious about education and children, there was often he often let the license for Star Wars be used on things like this for free, to promote literacy and health and all these other things. This is a famous one. It has Yoda promoting reading books from 1983. It was from, I thought it was the Young American Library, but it says the Yoda Read poster from the Howard Kazinjian collection. So it came from someone's collection that was quite famous as well. Now, this is a rare poster. I don't think I have ever seen this one in person. Have you seen it, Dax?
Yep, it was in my high school, actually in the library in high school, and which is groovy. And Howard Kazanjian isn't just a regular dude; he was one of the major producers for the film. So wasn't like Gary Kurtz did the first two, and then Howard Kazanjian came in, and I think he did the third one, and he's done. It was a bit of a big wig with Lucasfilm. So, but yeah, I did see this one in person. So. Back in the day. So I haven't seen it since. So there you go. Very, very cool. And it would be interesting to see if Gavin actually has this in his collection. So there you go. Ange, of course, went for 1,600. The ongoing theme. Natasha and the little dude, he'll be reading his own books pretty very soon. Is at 7,000. Carol's gone for $1,600 as well. I've gone for 1,601. Oh, yeah, good on you. I don't think they take 1 cent bids at Prop Store, but there you go. Christy said 1,850. Yep, had it in the school library as well. Moneybag Sullivan is at 5,500. Yeah, Gavin doesn't have it. Well, you never know how much this sold for. You could have actually picked it up. Bob is at 700. Colin is at 500. Gavin is chucked in 1,200. Michael, well done, 2,300. 2,000 for William. The Vial, I'll go Vial. Nothing. I'd love to see the Vial violating Yoda. Is at 3,000. Thomas is at 3,600. Yes, very, very groovy. All right, so it's not a movie poster, it's just a poster to encourage people or kids to read books. Very groovy, unbelievably rare. What do you reckon it's worth? It went for a whopping $1,000.
You should have ripped it off your library wall and kept it.
You should have too.
I like Joe's comment the best. So he uses the guy who talks backwards to promote literacy.
Yeah, that's a very good. Yeah, well done. Yeah, good on you, Joe. Yeah, it's the last person you want to teach you how to read. Gavin, I think, is close. Anything you want to say about this while I'm looking?
This is a particularly rare poster. Like I said, I've seen it in books. I don't remember seeing one locally. There are a lot of those kind of posters that were released in Australia. There's a rare one, or a rare magazine of Yoda for the ABC radio. There was also a series put out by the Victorian Education Department of magazines called Challenge Magazine. I don't know if anyone would remember them growing up. I stole all of mine from primary school, and they had some Star Wars articles and Doctor Who articles and posters in as well, and you just don't see them around either.
No, very, very cool. And yeah, so that would be a nice curio for the collectors. I mean, the value really isn't there, but it's just because it just was part of a history and it's never been seen since. That'd be the reason why you'd get it. So, yeah, very, very cool. So, what did everybody think of that? Doing posters from the old prop store. As you can see, when you go to the prop store, yeah, the old Greg King $2 is just not going to happen. So,
well, the thing I did, just to throw everyone because everyone expects the prop store to go for big bucks. I tried to avoid any of the ones that went for big bucks and found the cheapest ones I could on prop store. So that might have thrown people a bit. Next time, if we do it, maybe I'll go for some of the, $500,000 ones.
Very, very cool. All right, now we're going to be going back in time, kiddies, because we obviously posters are the theme for this evening, and old ones in particular. So Rusky Babes, who's going to be dropping fun factoids like nobody's business, is probably going to be loving this. But what's our topic tonight, Mr. Aaron?
Well, tonight we're taking a loving and nostalgic look at the poster art for the classic and golden age of Hollywood, I guess you would say, science fiction movies. So, of course, you cannot cover everything because there was a ton. So I guess we're looking at the iconic ones that everybody knows, and then some of the amazing pieces of art that people might not have seen before. But are brilliant to look at. Now, I have avoided some genres. There's none of sort of the universal monsters or horror or stuff like that, because that's just another show by itself. So we're mainly looking at science fiction. So monsters are all sort of giant lizards from under the water, not like horror monsters kind of thing.
So when I was running the convention Con 9 from Outer Space back in 2012 to promote, because it was a convention themed around the 1950s era, you can get all these posters online, so you can get print out copies for yourself. And I was doing high-res A3 images, sticking them on cardboard so I can use them as promotional things. And when we were actually promoting the event, people would come up and ask if they could buy them, because there's clearly an interest in this stuff. And of course, you can just download them yourself and just print them off yourself if you've got access to a laser printer. And of course, I didn't do it because ethically I was getting them for free, effectively. But they're all there, they're all available. So if you can't get the real thing, sometimes a good reproduction, which you can find online, as in not like from a professional company, but you print it out yourself, can look just as good. So keep that in mind, kids.
Here's some interesting trivia. What you were saying, there are a lot of people who are unethical, and you can buy a lot of these posters on Etsy because people will scan the originals and print out whatever. But the big Australian poster company, which is based up in Sydney, that we get the posters from the shop from, they actually ask us what posters should we get the rights to so we can print them. And for years and years, I've been saying, there's a lot of horror ones that you should get, and there's a lot of these old classics. And they tried to get the Universal monsters. The rights are available, and they're not very expensive. But there's no images that exist that are good enough for them to use at the size that they want, because the archives of a lot of these, like RKO and Universal or whatever archives they've been absorbed into, they didn't keep the original advertising plates and things like that, and they have to have new ones, and they basically have to recreate the art from scratch. So that's why a lot of these will never be reprinted again, and they hold their value, because unless someone goes back and finds the original lithograph prints and things like that, they just can't be done to the standard where people can reprint them.
Yep, fair enough. And also with a lot of the classic posters, as you'll see tonight, when they're framed, if they're framed really, really nicely, they can look just spectacular. And even if people have never seen the movies, they'll just be grabbed by the imagery going, that is just, it looks so cool. And that's what we're going to be showing a bit of tonight. So let's kick it off, going way back, 1927. Let's go.
So we've gone way back to the 20s, as Dag said, 1927. The original Metropolis is probably the earliest example of a science fiction movie that used a lot of advertising to promote it. There were science fiction movies before this, but not that advertised to the extent that Metropolis did. Now, Metropolis used a lot of different art styles from the time, Art Nouveau and a lot of other art techniques through the different countries and the different posters that it was released. It is interesting that I do think a lot of the artists probably didn't have their head around science fiction movies. So you get these very old-fashioned pictures that almost look like Supernatural with witches and stuff like that, or cities with the Art Deco looks. And the art is broad and very different styles. So it's almost like they didn't know how to advertise it the best. But that's great for us because it gives us a snapshot into art of the time and the different styles that were available. And a lot of the people who were doing the art back then, it wasn't an industry where, there was so much coming out that movie posters was something you could do for a living. They would have been doing posters for a lot of other things and art for a lot of other things. So this is some of the very seminal, very early artwork. I think we've got a second lot of posters here. So you can see there's block print stuff, there's more coloured stuff. There even exists some original lobby cards from Metropolis. Interestingly, Metropolis was reissued, I think, in about 1983. And the poster that I knew growing up for Metropolis, the one on the right there, is probably the least represented one of the ones that were used when it originally came out. Do you remember seeing Metropolis or the posters or any of the artwork for it, mate?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're talking about the Giorgio Moroder version on the extreme right-hand side, absolutely. I mean, when this came out, it's what got me into silent movies. But yeah, well, right, there's a lot of different variations of the posters. And I've got to admit, this one here I've never seen before, this really tall one. That looks really great, actually. I've got to say, that's an interesting style. These ones would be a bitch to frame because they're so long. But yeah, that looks awesome. They're
like almost the Australian debuts, some of the Paris posters that they had for these. I totally agree that they are beautiful posters and beautiful piece of art. These original posters command very, very high prices. I couldn't even find any originals for sale. These are the posters that, when they come up for sale, you're looking at like maybe a quarter of a house to buy one.
Yeah, well, you got to remember, the movie turns 100 years old in 4 years' time, so you got to keep that in mind. Williams made a mention about the 1933 King Kong one. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, you'll find there's a lot of old posters from old movies, not just sci-fi, but just even generic ones that command massive, massive prices. And if you ever watch Bargain Hunt on TV, there's sometimes they even talk about posters selling when they got the really large billboard type posters that are being sold for movies you might not even heard of. And they're absolutely stunning quality, and they go for tens of thousands of dollars. So there's a big market for it if you've got the dollars, and a lot of people don't because of the age. So yeah.
Well, it's crazy. And as we go along through this presentation tonight, I did look on eBay and looked at what some of these posters cost on what they had sold. So we will be doing sort of, spot checks as we go along of what you're looking at to pay for some of these original posters.
And I think it is important that if you are a person who's into art, because a lot of the things, they weren't photographed, there was no Photoshop, obviously. If you're into art, you can really appreciate the work that went into these. So, yeah.
Well, what's amazing about these, when you look at them, there's some different styles there. When it came to science fiction, the majority of the posters were generally about alien invasion, space exploration, or weird monsters. There are a couple of exceptions to that, but that's what we're going to be looking at. But when you look at the posters, you've got to remember a lot of the times this was the first example of genres that were being advertised. So when you've got the War of the Worlds there, I do love the imagery of Mars being so powerful with that giant hand, and the humans looking so helpless because they are intimidated by asteroids and fire, and this giant hand from Mars with War of the Worlds. You know what you were going to go and see from looking at the poster without any spoilers at all.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's a very, very stylized one, especially the writing as well. So you can imagine when they're designing a lot of these, they're going through all these different techniques and styles. And there is a common theme, and you'll find in a lot of them. And in fact, I just realized I cut off. So Invasion of the Saucermen, they're always captured a woman, right? Having the aliens or the monsters or whatever carrying females around, usually scantily clad, became an ongoing theme. Even if in the movie that didn't even happen, because Invasion of the Saucermen were tiny, right? So, but it sold the picture, and I don't really know the mindset behind it as to why that would have been a big thing, whether it was the old damsel in distress sort of mindset, but it was a very common theme in a lot of these posters. At least in War of the Worlds, they didn't do that.
Well, I think what I was going to say, it is one of the ones I put up because Dags is absolutely right. You can have the woman being held by the alien, the monster, the giant gorilla, the robot, or even the hero of the movie, almost in the same position in every one, laid back like that. And that's one of the early themes. And I do think it's like that because science fiction movies, they do one poster and it's popular. And then all the other movies who want to be as popular kind of mimic the same imagery on the poster. And that's why you'll see themes sort of travel through a lot of the posters. The other, yep.
You can finish.
Well, the other interesting thing there is that last poster of the three. Often the movie posters show a a stylized or a artistic version of the monsters, and that is generally because the monsters on the posters are 100 times better than what is actually on the screen. It's very rare for that planet man from Planet X. They've actually used a photo on the poster of the actual monster. You'll only find that on the posters where the monsters actually look quite good. So you can get away with having it on the poster. A lot of them use imagery and paintings because they can get away with, a monster that's a 2 out of 10, but the artist can make it a 9 out of 10 monster. So it will get the audience in probably having higher expectations than what they're actually going to get.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And as we mentioned about the whole thing of being the female being captured by whatever the beast happens to be, even if it doesn't occur in the movies, in the film itself, there are some examples where the female doesn't get captured at all by the beast, and in the poster they definitely don't show that because it doesn't happen in the film. And funnily enough, in The Thing, that's an example of that.
Yeah, so we've got that the Thing poster there, and you can see there's the advanced poster that we saw on the auction before. Then we've got the more colourful posters. A lot of the posters you will find though for these old movies are monochromatic, which means they've picked one colour and they go with that. And because it's science fiction, a lot of them are green because green is the colour of aliens. It's also cheaper.
You beat me to it. It would have been a cost-saving thing. Yep, go on.
Yeah. So when they would do the color print ones, that was obviously the three colors and the black and white and the black, and then the monochromatic, there's just one color and black, so it makes it cheaper. What I thought was fantastic about this, the lobby cards that look like they were from black and white photos and then they've been hand colored, and you've got like this lurid green version of the Thing from another world. And of course, you know what's interesting about the Thing logo there, Dags? I think you probably do.
Yeah, because they use the same one for the 82 version. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So it's such an iconic and such a classic poster that they harken back to it in the new version.
Yeah, it's interesting in this version here because you see the Thing, and that it's a bit of a spoiler, so that may have been from a later release, but it's an interesting one. So Christy made a point of saying the fainting woman sells because of men's protective instincts. You're probably right. Working on the view that the hero has to save the damsel in distress, and that was an ongoing theme in a lot of these films. Even if in the film itself that wasn't necessarily the case at all. There's a good example of that coming up later on.
Yeah, often it's the fainting, scantily clad woman, unfortunately, because of men's pervy instincts as well.
Yep.
So we've got the invasion of the body snatchers here, and one of the themes that ran through a lot of the sci-fi movies was invasion and secret invasion, and that was a lot to do with the Cold War and because of the war. I guess this is pre-Cold War, but
well, actually, yeah, you're on the right track. It was mainly because of Americans' distrust of the Soviet Union, which is kind of ironic today, like even as of right now. But it was always the red threat, the communist threat, the fact that Russians were going to infiltrate the US and sort of permeate the government and all this. It was the red theory or the red threat back then. So yes, you're right. A lot of invasion. The bad guys were usually representatives or like illusions to Russia.
Russian Union, and like in Star Trek, a lot of the science fiction writers use science fiction stories to mask, current society. Again, I think The Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a fantastic movie because you've got the handprint there, which is, of course, all about identity. And of course, it's identity theft. And I do think a lot of the sci-fi movies, the posters are artists just like doing crazy stuff from their imagination, but a lot of them show a lot more thought and stylization and design than some of just the general ones, because the people thought about what was happening in the movies. The middle one there is an interesting one. I don't know if you've seen Village of the Damned, based on John Wyndham's Midwich Cuckoos. That's a British movie, the same kind of thing with invasion, but it's the children that are aliens. And then of course we've got one of my favorite movies, The Blob, which is about jelly that eats people.
Two things. So in The Blob, when it was first made, just quickly, it was Stephen McQueen because he was an absolute nobody at that point. And as you can see later on, when there was a re-release, he got changed to Steve. So that was quite interesting. And funnily enough, with Invasion of the Body Snatchers, it was one of the rare occasions where the bad guys actually won. So typically in a lot of movies, the good guys always had to be triumphant, obviously in this case, the Americans and whatever. But in this, they were saying, no, the invasion has actually worked. In this case, the Russians, if you will, have taken over, and away we go. So, it didn't happen very often. So it was a famous last scene in the movie that sort of covered that off. But, particularly groovy. Speaking of famous movies, the Vile is going to absolutely go completely apeshit over this one. Of course, it is The Creature from the Blacky Lagoon.
So The Creature from the Black Lagoon, I think, has absolutely amazing comic art and poster art for all of the movies they made for it, and including the international art. And The Creature from the Black Lagoon is one of those movies that I think works really well, because a lot of movies with men in suits, you just go, it's ruined because it's a man in a suit. But the Vile's friend, the creature from the Black Lagoon, actually comes across as a real creature. I don't know how they managed to do it with the plastic suit and get so much sort of, I guess, natural movement and making it look like something that could exist. But I do think out of a lot of those movies with men in plastic suits, the creature from the Black Lagoon is a classic monster, and it does deserve, you know, all the action figures and busts and statues that it still gets, because it is one of those examples of probably Hollywood design on the cheap worked really, really well. And it is one of those where the poster, they actually do a really good representation of the creature, and you're not disappointed when you go in and see the creature, because it looks like the creature that's on the poster.
Totally agree. Now, the funny thing about this is that the Gill Man actually does steal the girl, so that's representative of the movie, and I thought that's fine. And of course, in this version, yeah, sure enough, he's picked up the chick again. But in this one, the creature walks among us. This time, he's chucking a dude, and it's not very often you get to see a guy getting picked up, and obviously he's going to get chucked to the shit out. So, so they finally said, all right, we can't have you picking up a girl this time around. We've done that twice already for the other two films. Pick up a dude and have some fun with that.
And I like in that one how he's actually straddling the bridge. So one leg is on one side and one is the other, implying the creature is a giant creature from the Black Lagoon, which it isn't at all in that movie. And of course, you know what happened with the creature in the end. The suit went back into the prop store, and he turned up as Uncle Gil on the Munsters a couple of times.
Yeah, it's funny that even Rusky Babies have made a point about it. The suit cost $26,000. So I'm not surprised by that. But it was very good. And yeah, the Vile is excited beyond repair, as he should be too. The Gill Man does have a very, very strong following, which is particularly groovy.
So here is another classic movie poster with imagery that I think everyone will have known, and that's The Day the Earth Stood Still, and Gort the Robot, which again is probably head and shoulders above some of the other sort of men in suit robots that were around at the time. Again, The Day the Earth Stood Still is unusual because of it didn't follow the convention of invasion from space. It was more a warning from space, change your warlike ways or you will be destroyed kind of thing. And on the opposite side of that, we've got one of those absolute rippers of a movie, Earth versus the Flying Saucers. So on one side, you've got the aliens are here to help, and then the other side, you've got they're going to blow us all to bits. And they're both classic. They're both classic movies, and they'd make a great double feature.
Now, what I find funny, right? You look at this poster here, and Gort is firing the gun, and he's not picking the girl up. Helen Benson is the character's name. In this poster, he is picking her up, but she's got the long, blonde, flowing locks. And of course, Helen Benson's character looks much like this one, right? As you can see here. So I don't know what. So I don't know if they designed the poster long before they made the film and said, "Okay, we're just assuming that Helen Benson is going to be a babe with long blonde hair," and it's a complete opposite in the movie. But at least Gort does actually physically pick her up. So this one is correct, even though the Helen Benson character looks nothing like that. So it's one of those things.
And of course, Dags, you'd be able to say the three famous words from this movie that have echoed down the annals of science fiction.
Clarta, Brado, Nicto. Yeah, exactly right. And of course, Clartu, of course, is the name of Michael Rennie's character. So, and just as a slight aside, I got a complete freak out when I saw that there was a news reporter like the other week, and his name was Michael Rennie. And I go, oh my God, there's Clartu. What the hell is he still kicking around? How good is that? I wonder if he even knows what the link is. So, yes, exactly right. Very good.
Yeah. And here's one I was surprised because it had such a broad advertising campaign, lots of different posters in color. And I think because the movie was in color, and you'll notice this a few times, as soon as it says Technicolor on it, they obviously get a bigger budget to do posters. So you have colorful lobby cards, colorful posters, and a much broader advertising campaign. This is one of those where I've put a little tab down the bottom. One sold for $1,800 US, so maybe just over 2,200 Australian for an original This Island Earth poster. And what I thought was interesting about that, they really didn't spoil a lot of the movie. In the lobby cards, there's some of the mutant,
Yep.
but they really kept it quite secret. Which, when you're advertising a movie like this, you might want to be revealing that, because that's what you might want your audience to go and see. The interesting one there is the one with the spaceship in the middle, which really isn't representative of the movie at all.
I gotta love it. You never try and out nerd the nerd. So Rusky Babes has gone Klaatu Brada, but he spelled Klaatu wrong. It's 2 A's and one U. And Ange has gone Klaatu, so he's missing an A, and it's Barata, not Verata. So, and don't forget, you can chuck the Gort at the middle. So, good on you, lads. You're typing a little bit too fast.
Do you know what? I'll out nerd you again, and you can actually forgive Russell on that, because he is quoting a misquote from Army of Darkness. So Ash said it wrong, so conceivably it can be spelt wrong.
Yeah, but we're referring to the actual movie, not what they said in Army of Darkness. That'd be like saying we're doing the Return of the Jedi quote of the 3 characters. We're not. It's inspired by the movie, and that's what we're talking about. So back at you, fanboy.
Well, he's like Klaatu Barada because he forgets the last word.
Oh yeah, right. Okay. So Rusky Babes is quoting Army of Darkness. Okay, very, very good. Good stuff. I'm glad we got that clarified. Yes, you are right. This Island Earth, like this, the old 2.5 years in the making, which obviously meant it was going to be high quality, and it was actually a very high quality movie, and good on them too. So an absolute.
And I have one word for you. How popular is the Interocitor from that as a toy?
Oh, it is so cool. If you ever go to Aaron's store, you have to look for it. It's in one of the glass cabinets, and good luck if you find it. So yes, very, very groovy. And of course, monsters and beings and things.
One of the things you will find, it doesn't always mean it's a quality movie, but as long as it had a good monster on it, it always find an audience. You can see this here because you have It Came from Outer Space with the giant eye on. The Killer Shrews, which is an interesting one. I hadn't seen that, and I only used it because the poster for that, which is a movie I hadn't really thought much of, went for $1,000 US just for the original poster there. It Conquered the World was actually one of my favorite B movies growing up, because the monster in it was huge and looked really, really good for a Hollywood B movie monster. It kind of did a lot of stuff and had could move around and grab people. That one didn't go for quite as much, 950 US. And then It Came from Outer Space down the bottom there. It had an original price of $1,750, I think, but they took an offer, so it probably went for around $1,500. So any of these posters now, they've reached that age where it doesn't really matter what the movie is and what it's thought. It's just a rare piece of pop art, and people are collecting them. Some of those movies there are classic. Some of them are classic because they're bad. Have you seen most of those, Dags?
Oh, yeah, I've got most of them on DVD. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms on the extreme right-hand bottom side. I think you may have to correct me on this one. I think it was the first Ray Harryhausen movie that he did visual effects on. For that reason, if you're a Harry devotee, that would probably be worth more than some of the others. So,
I think you're right, and I think the other first that movie has, I think it has the first person being killed on screen. When the guy gets lifted up and eaten by the monster, which actually had people fainting and running out of the cinema in terror.
Yeah. But yeah, you can certainly see a difference. Like you look at It Conquered the World, and it's relatively bland, versus The Beast, which is below it, and all the color and the style and all the rest of it. So of the two, you'd go for the Beast poster any day of the week, even though it was made, I believe, before the It Conquered the World. So yeah, budgets are obviously a bit of a thing back then as to who could afford what. And particularly groovy. But speaking of a shitload of color, you got to go here.
So this is Tobor the Great, and Tobor is imaginatively named. Do you know what Tobor is, Dad?
Yeah, it's robot spelled backwards. Yeah. No expense spared on that one.
So there's the Genius Brains Trust that came up with that one. One of the first robot movies with Man in a Suit as a robot, very popular with robot collectors. Interestingly, they haven't ever really licensed a lot of Tobor merchandise, even though he was a popular. When this movie was around, he was sort of as popular as Robbie the Robot, and he has become one of the forgotten robots of Hollywood. Only those devotees that really love the original stuff remember Tobor the Great. And on the other side there, we have probably one of the most lamented robots of Hollywood, where we've got robot monsters. Are they robots?
No, it's
No.
not. He's not actually. He's obviously a dude in a gorilla suit with a helmet, but he's not actually a robot as such. And of course, the funny thing is, going back to the whole story of like the alien carrying the girl in the movie, for whatever reason, Roman really had the hots for the only young woman who was there, and it was like, well, it was never explained as to why. He had this whole thing about wanting to procreate and this and that, and it was like, yeah, righto. So anyway, whatever.
It is legendary, one of the worst films ever made. Although it is one of those that people love to watch because it is bad. And I have seen at conventions people cosplaying Robot Monster, and it's quite funny and quite good.
Even at Con 9 from Outer Space, someone did that, which is kind of funny. Yeah, in the double billings, it was always teamed up with Plan 9 from Outer Space, so they seem to just go hand in hand, those two. And Rusky Babes did confirm that yes, Beast was the first Harry solo movie. Good to see I got my thing correct there, which is kind of groovy. Then we come to one of the granddaddies of all sci-fi movies.
Yes, so Forbidden Planet, and I think Forbidden Planet is one of the, I guess, cornerstones of sci-fi movies. It had everything right. Fantastic special effects, fantastic story, kind of based on Taming of the Shrew. It had amazing character in Robbie the Robot. It had good actors taking it seriously. It was filmed in colour, and if you wanted one of these posters, you can buy one now on eBay for 35,000 Australian.
So the irony of this is what we've been discussing about the creature carrying the girl, right? And you got the picture there. Robbie is carrying Altair, I think it is. And of course, in the movie, he never did that. And if anything, Robbie picked up the guy, right? When the guy had fainted on the couch, it's sort of like he'd be using the machine. So it's kind of ironic. That's actually false advertising, right? Big time. I mean, sure, she wore an outfit similar to that, but Robbie never carried her. So, yeah, how's that for pulling the shifty on the audiences?
And it is one of those where they use the, I guess by this time, traditional template, like you were saying, of the protagonist or one of the characters carrying the girl. So you're absolutely right there. Now, Forbidden Planet is such a popular movie that over the years it's obviously been reissued at the cinema quite a number of times. And on this slide, we see the original poster and the different versions of it. But it actually got a lot of reissues with a lot of different posters, and some of them are just as fantastic as the original. And Angelo says this is the holy grail of posters. It would be, one of the most famous posters ever. In sci-fi collections, it would be the one everyone would want to get.
Totally agree. Joe has said he's never seen this one. It's one of the rare occasions, Joe, that you got a sci-fi movie that is not set on Earth at all. You're on a completely foreign planet the entire time, which is particularly groovy. So, yeah, we'll absolutely love it. Look at that.
So these are some of the reissue posters of Forbidden Planet and some of the international ones. And again, you can see some of them use the template that was on the original, but some of them went beyond that and completely redrew and redesigned it. All of it kind of has Robbie, which is by far the most memorable character from it, although the entire cast is good, and you've got Leslie Nielsen playing it straight in his early Hollywood career before he did the Naked Gun comedies. And on the edge there, I've only seen it once, and I remember loving it as a kid, but I've never felt the need to watch it again, is The Invisible Boy, which is the other movie that Robbie the Robot appeared in before he kind of become the butt of jokes on sitcoms. So he'd turn up on Dobie Gillis and all these other sort of sitcoms, because he was obviously just sitting in the Universal Studios backlot somewhere, and people would use him in different things.
Ange just said he's got the autographs from both Anne Francis and Leslie Nielsen. So good for you, Mr. Ange. So, yeah, well done. And I see a massive Rusky Babes fun factoid. He's just been sitting there typing out War and Peace while you've been talking. Might have a look at that while you start talking about this stuff.
Okay. So someone mentioned this earlier. The original King Kong is one of the rarest posters. Only a couple of them are known to exist. I think it might have, when one of them came up for auction, it might have been one of the posters that's hit $1 million when it was sold. You don't ever see them, so whoever bought that's going to hold on to it. The interesting thing about King Kong, again, it was reissued a lot of times, and people might know every time it was reissued, to get more screenings, they cut little bits more and more out. So the original version of King Kong does not exist. There's the famous, I think it's the crab scene that was cut out from the original version, and they've never ever found a print with it that's intact. You can watch a recreation of it online, but King Kong as an entire movie does not exist. But anyway, that's an interesting little side. The posters, I think, for King Kong are fantastic. Again, you've got almost in the same position the girl who is being held by King Kong there in the poster. I know if I was a kid and I saw that poster and then dinosaurs fighting a giant monkey underneath, I would have wanted to see that. And then he seems to grow bigger and bigger in each poster, where he's swatting planes and standing over cities and things like that. So it really is one of those movies that stands up to the hype of the posters too. You can still watch the original King Kong, and it is a very watchable and entertaining movie. Do you like King Kong?
Oh yeah, it was fantastic. I remember seeing it as a kid, and it was absolutely awesome. Although it was funny, in all the King Kong iterations, he's always got a fascination for the girl, and I never figured as to what that was. So it was like, is King Kong meant to be a representation of a fully blooded heterosexual bloke or something like that? It's just really, I don't know. But you never went for the dudes; you always went for the girls. Go figure.
It is. I think it is one of those, and Beauty tamed the beast. Type situations that they sort of talk about a few times. I don't mind Peter Jackson's version. I know the one that was released in the 70s. I would often think, oh, come on, hurry up. Like, this is dragging out.
Yeah, as the song said, get to the effing monkey. Very good. And you're right, King Kong was made pre-code, and there's a long discussion about the Hays Code. But yes, there's a lot of stuff that they got away with at the time. So very good stuff. Now, of course, once you've got giant monkeys, all you can go on to from there is other gigantic beasts. Mate, huge.
One of the other subgenres of B movies and sci-fi movies from the 40s, 50s, and 60s was the giant beasts, or them finding a valley of dinosaurs, or dinosaurs being defrosted and attacking, or giant claws on giant rocks, and a whole lot of different animals that they had giant versions of, right up to giant praying mantises that terrorized the world. Now, indefinitely, when I never saw these at the cinema, but when video libraries were at their heyday, I would go into the weekly section and you would have all of these that you could rent. And I would say 90% of the time, the cover art and the amazing illustrations were a lot better than the actual movie when you got it home and saw it. A lot of these movies were filmed around 2 or 3 set pieces, and then a lot of linking material where you didn't see anything. Or the other one that they used to do was real lizards with bits glued onto them, filmed in slow motion.
Or they had the other version, which was an absolute classic, and I did discuss this in another show, Beginning of the End, where they actually had pictures of buildings and they laid them flat, and they got real cockroaches to walk over them. Because of the scale of the photograph, the cockroach is like 7 stories high or whatever. And the problem was that when they walked off to the side, they were walking in fresh air. But doesn't matter. It's all good. It was the way to go. But big ass monsters and things attacking cities, killing people, destroying things. It was the way to go. And you mentioned, like, you got It Came From Beneath the Sea over here, a gigantic octopus, which didn't actually have 8 legs. I don't think it only had 4 or maybe 6 because it was too hard to animate all 8 of them. Came out of the sea, and it's a fantastic scene of that coming out of San Francisco Harbor. And but these things were awesome. And as I think probably as adults, you would have been jaded by it, but as kids, when we saw a lot of these things, couldn't help but love them. And that's the reason why they're so ingrained in our consciousness today, which is very, very cool.
If you were going to go back and look at one of the old discussions you had, there's Alfie, our friend, who made a model of the giant claw, which is well worth. I can't remember
absolutely
where that was.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So if you can't get around the fact that you've got gigantic monsters, the only thing to do is get in your ships and go to the moon.
Well, this is one of the other genres of sci-fi movies, and that was explorers in space, first men to the moon, first men to Mars, first men to Venus, attacks from rockets from space, attacks from Satan, 12 moons of Venus, target Earth. A lot of these, again, were fantastic for kids that used to marvel and go and look at the rocket scenes, because we kind of a bit nonchalant about it. But back in the days with the early NASA and space program, it really fired the imagination. You've got to remember, there was one of the most popular rides at Disneyland where you basically went and sat in a tubular sort of amphitheater, and you looked down, and they just played a movie of people going to space and going through an asteroid field. And this was basically you just sitting there and watching a movie of it. And it was one of the most popular and inspiring rides in Tomorrowland, in Disneyland. So for a kid who was fired up about rocketry and all this kind of thing, probably the stories wouldn't have mattered so much if you went along and you saw rockets taking off and landing on other planets and fighting aliens. It wouldn't have really mattered if they were breathing on the moon or fighting unrealistic monsters. It would have been a fantastic experience that you would have enjoyed to go and see just because of the subject of the movie.
Yeah, and it was true science fiction because at that point they barely even like gotten into orbit at that point. So it was just like everything everybody could dream about, and it was absolutely fantastic. So you are right; it was really tapping into the psyche of everybody, going, "I wonder what it would be like," which is particularly groovy. I've got two questions that have come up. Gavin's asked, "What would the largest creature in movies be?" I'm taking a stab and say Godzilla. Yeah, off the top of my head. And you got to say anything? But you want to mention
No,
anything? No?
Godzilla are one of the monsters that fought him, if there was any bigger ones. But,
yeah. So anything from the Toho crowd. Gavin's mentioned where his trip to the moon. Chances are Trip to the Moon didn't really have any posters. We're talking about 1902 at that point. So, if they did, they wouldn't exist, not by any stretch. And that's the thing. So you could probably have, you might have people who like recreated their own versions of like fan posters, if you will, that look just as good as the original, but the originals, they just wouldn't be around. So
the only advertising I've seen on Trip to the Moon is probably when people have recognized it as an important piece of cinematic history, and then, like Dag said, make a recreation of a poster or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Trip to the Moon didn't get really recognized as being what it was until like 30 years after it came out. So, and by then, it sort of like it had its time. And there's a long story we could discuss about that. So you can feel that there's a bit of a buzz going on around the place, how excited we are. And of course, that only just gets us into the real buzz, The Fly.
Yes, so it's one of those movies where we're looking at different creatures, and we will look at more of those creatures, but The Fly really captured everyone's imagination to the point where there weren't a lot of sequels in this era. They were one and done and move on to the next big thing, but The Fly did get a couple of sequels. Now, The Fly, I guess, I don't know why it captured the imagination as much as it did, maybe because it's a sympathetic monster. So maybe has a broader appeal than sort of, the hulking, kill everything kind of monster. It had Vincent Price, who, maybe he was a lot in genre movies, but a lot of the general B-grade movies didn't have any headliners in. They were often, the Troy McClures and all of this. And it had a great imagination with great special effects. So The Fly had a big print campaign. And you can see they didn't really give away the story either. And in one of those switch ups from the maiden getting held by the monster, she's actually in the spider's web in this one.
Yeah, there was a version of the posters, it's not here actually, is where you see the woman screaming, and it's done like really hexagonal. And of course, that's actually the Fly's point of view looking at her. Which you don't really notice when you look at the poster. You go, that's really different, stylized, and of course that's the reason why they did it, which is particularly groovy. So, but yes, The Fly was definitely something a little bit different and not your average movie, which is why I think it was so successful.
Yeah, and people might not know that The Fly had 3 sequels. It had Return of the Fly, which is interesting because the original Fly was colour, but then they went back to black and white to make it a bit cheaper. And then it had The Curse of the Fly. And then the one I was a bit disappointed because the Fly really didn't appear in it much, but that's Superfly, the black version of the Fly.
Yeah, good on you. So, yes, somehow or other, I think that poster on the right-hand side, that's not going to end up on anybody's wall anytime soon. But, yes. But, I mean, the downside, of course, with a lot of the posters here is that, I mean, it's about the fly, but by definition, a fly is not a very appealing thing. So it's almost like you love it because of the movie, but you don't want to see a big-ass fly on your wall. So there you go. Speaking of flies don't float your boat, maybe ants do.
Yeah, so I think them is another one of those posters that when it comes up for auction goes for tens of thousands rather than thousands of dollars. Them is, of course, about giant ants. And I think what is very clever about the movie poster, you can see their ants on it, but if you went and saw it as them before you had any spoilers, you wouldn't know it was about giant radioactive ants, and I think that's quite clever, and that might be why people were shocked and it became one of those movies that was a bit of a cult classic and is well known above some of the other monsters from the time. You've got Mothra there, which always amused me. It's about a giant moth. All you had to do was like really make some big lights, and that was the end of Mothra. You've got the giant tarantula. You've got Attack of the Giant Crab Monsters, and then you've got the Wasp Women. And again, it's one of those B-grade movies that I have seen. I wouldn't think was anything special, and the poster for that is still going for more than 2,000 US.
Yeah, I kind of don't figure that one out at all. So, but I guess somebody out there that just pushes their buttons too. So, yeah, and a lot of these movies are very hard to find in really good condition because they just like deteriorate and never got proper releases and whatever else. Them is easy, but yeah, Crab Monsters is very hard to find in good condition, a good version of that to watch. And it's not the best movie in the world either to watch. So,
yeah,
there you go. Speaking of Godzilla.
So yes, so probably as we were saying, one of the biggest monsters ever, and has probably spawned more sequels than any other monster movie for sure. The original Godzilla was Japanese, and then of course they filmed a whole lot of stuff with Raymond Burr and added it into it for release in America. And at the time, it became the most successful Japanese movie released in America. It was the combination of the original amazing special effects, but not having the dubbing and refilming stuff for the American scenes made it a truly international release. Now, there's the original American Godzilla movie poster, which I think is fantastic. It was a black and white movie, but there's a great colourful poster there. Now, we could do a whole show on Japanese movie monster posters, and they are fantastic, and I think they look great, but we're not going in that direction. So I've just put a broad sample of some of the Toho Productions, King Kong versus Godzilla versus Rodan versus the Smog Monster versus every single monster you can think of, really. Did you grow up watching these movies, Dags?
Some of them, yeah, but I've lost track of which one was which. But yeah, I mean, the whole idea of Godzilla running around destroying cities, and that was just fantastic. So yeah, gotta love it.
Yeah.
One thing I do know is, like this poster here, the one on the left, apparently the story was that some of them were printed out of focus. It's like out of focus, and that's why they changed the name from Raymond Burr to Raymond Blur. Anyway, let's move on.
Oh, that's one of the best ones yet.
You heard it here first.
Maybe Godzilla wasn't the biggest monster ever. Maybe it was the 50-foot woman. I never did Godzilla versus the 50-foot woman, which is surprising because they did everything else.
You know what the irony is? In that picture there, she's a shitload bigger than 50 foot.
I thought you were going to say the irony was she should have a giant iron.
Very good. What,
so
like a golf club?
You had the Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, and you had the Amazing Colossal Man, and then the War of the Colossal Beast, which kind of looked like the Colossal Man. But those three posters, they pose a question to me. Where are they getting the giant underwear from?
Yeah, exactly right. The funny thing about it, I don't know if you knew this, but the Amazing Colossal Man, which was a really good movie because the guy's getting bigger and they can't work out why, they make the sequel because I think he died actually in the original movie. They brought him back for War of the Colossal Beast, but they couldn't get the original actor. So they did the thing of damaging his eye to try and disfigure his face so he didn't look, they could tell it wasn't the same guy. But you can tell when you looked at him, you're going, that's a different actor. It's like, but it's the same character and it's set directly after the original movie. So
well, there you go. Well, he's got the same togs on, so at least there's that. Yeah.
I mean,
then you've got, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I mean, the problem with this picture here, depending on your point of view, you say she's standing over the freeway, the cars are driving underneath, they're all going to be looking up to say, what the hell's that? You interpret that any way you like, kids.
Yes, well.
Yeah, she's 50-foot commando. Don't look up.
Yeah, don't look up. So we've also got the Shrinking Man, Radioactive Man, Cosmic Man, and Attack of the Puppet People, which was basically sort of an inspiration for Land of the Giants, really, where you have a lot of forced perspective and close-ups of dogs and cats, you know, with like distant shots of people put into it. So that was another genre in Hollywood, and it was moderately successful. They did do some updates of Attack of the 50-Foot Woman with Daryl Hannah, and I think there was one with Lily Tomlin, but I never thought they were very good.
Yeah, you can imagine that they're sitting there going, okay, we've done all the big ass beasts around the place. You can't have little ones. So let's make a big dude and a small dude and a transparent dude and a melting dude. Dude with two heads.
They never
Unbelievable.
they never built up to the dude expanded universe and put them all in the same movie, though, did they?
No, they did not. So, yes, very, very cool.
And as we were seeing in the last movie, there were some exploitation movies in Hollywood in the science fiction because, there's always a reason to put like some of the women in skimpy clothes or skin tight spaceships or things like that. Now, I have actually never seen Queen of Outer Space with Zsa Zsa Gabor in. Have you seen that one, Dags?
Yeah, I've actually got it. I have watched it once. The funny thing about it is the guys, the heroes, all wear the Forbidden Planet costumes because it was made by the same studio. They didn't bother making new ones. So you can be confused thinking, hang on, where was Jar Jar Gabor in Forbidden Planet? And she's not. So yeah.
Okay. So yeah, and then you've got the Devil Girls from Outer Space and a lot of other sort of girls from outer space. And of course, So I Married a Teenage Monster, which I guess was trying to go for a broader appeal.
I know. I married a monster from outer space. That was, yeah, I remember that one. I did actually. I saw that in the cinema actually. So yeah, anyway, keep going.
Yep. And then the one there, 5, is interesting, where there's 5 people left on Earth. And I remember that being quite good, although I haven't seen it for a long time, where there's one girl and 4 guys that are all trying to woo her and be with her kind of thing. In sort of a very naive version of an apocalypse movie. So some of these exploitation movies go for quite a bit, and you can see there you've got one that went for 1,700 US and another one that went for 1,100 US. Again, probably for movies that wouldn't really be considered, amazing classics of the genre, but just because of the art from the time and the amazing imagery, they obviously would look amazing framed up on someone's wall and be quite a conversation piece.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly right. And I guess I mean it's the old female empowerment thing, which is great, but the stories that they were probably working with probably didn't make them look all that powerful. It's like Mars needs women and all sort of business. And
it is one of those things where Star Trek was very ahead of its time, because in all of the science fiction movies, you would occasionally get a woman scientist who was probably quite bookish, but usually the whole tone was step back, let the men do this in a lot of the gung-ho sort of Forbidden Planet kind of ways. And you watch them now, and it was probably normal at the time, but a lot of them, the attitude is very sexist to the girls in it. Sort of, it does have that attitude of, oh, what are you doing here? You should be in the kitchen. That sort of attitude, which is very outdated and quite embarrassing, I guess, when you watch it.
Yeah, welcome to the 1950s. Exactly right. So there you go. Very good.
So there we go. We've actually run early today, and I thought I didn't do as many because we had the Spankin segment. I thought we were going to go overtime, but there you go. So I hope that you've enjoyed our perusal through some of the great Hollywood posters of yesteryear, and I hope that we've covered off all of the ones that you were hoping to see. And if there's any that we missed, I'm sorry. These were just kind of the ones that had the most striking design and the most interesting imagery. And then, of course, some of the most classic movies. Do you think there was anything we missed, Dags?
There's probably a lot, but I mean, it's not important. We got the point across, which is the most important thing. A couple of questions. Thomas has asked if we've done a time tunnel feature or the Land of the Giants. I think the answer is no. Is that we haven't got to that one yet? There was a question about Gavin said about a ship being shrunk down and put inside a person. The original version, that was Fantastic Voyage, as Rusky Babes pointed out. That was made in the 60s, and that was with Raquel Welch.
Yeah.
And they did make a point because Raquel Welch was a bit of a sex symbol back then. And they said, yeah, no, we'll stick her out inside the human body, and she gets attacked by the antibodies, and they're all wrapped around her, and it's all very sensual and sexual. And good on you guys.
There was a few movies from the 60s that have amazing posters, but I really wanted to cut off towards the end of the 50s for tonight, and we might do a 60s and 70s one because they do have a very distinct style down the track at some point. So we will cover some more movie posters at some time.
Yep, and the Vile said Inner Space, which was the remake of Fantastic Voyage. So there you go. Very, very good. So, but you are right. We are ahead of time, but we will finish up anyway. So the good thing is that, these posters still do command a lot of high prices. And the important thing, it means that they still exist, right? They're still somewhere to be found. And even if you do end up with reproductions, which is the next best thing, as I said earlier, you frame them, you put them on your walls, it's just always going to grab people's attention because they're going to go, that is the coolest thing ever. And some of them are absolutely spectacular. And it's from a really good part about sci-fi nerdy history. Anything you want to say before we wrap up?
Here's something really interesting about the reproductions. As we were saying, the original Godzilla the original King Kong poster is one of the hardest posters to find. And I saw on eBay, there was someone who had a lithograph machine and was reprinting them. So they were reprinting them to order with the original materials, so they would be exactly the same as the original. How much do you think they were charging for a reproduction poster like that?
No, it's either going to be cheap or very expensive, but I'll assume it's expensive.
It was more than I thought. They were going for 12,000 US. Wow. Sorry, 1,200 US, and they were selling, which I found unbelievable for a reproduction. And you can look that up on eBay and buy one if you want, but I would not pay that for a reproduction that they're printing out to order.
No, exactly right. All right, so we're going to buzz off for this evening. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Go and watch the footy and see who won. Don't post any spoilers. We'll leave you to it. In the interim, make sure you keep all your posters. Well, you can't leave them in box because they're already loose. So I'm just going to shut up. What are you going to say, dude?
I'm going to say unroll them out of the tube and pin them to the wall.
Oh, don't use pins. Use blue tack. It's the way to go. All right, leave you to it, guys. See you next week.
Have a good night, guys. See you.
Okay. Bye.